that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. So lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and the famous Tom Fennell, who has come back from his vacation in Honolulu. And I'm lying. Okay. Every day I get up and I go to the news media early and look at what's going on in the world, and I find...
He does it, not me.
And I find, 10 or 15 articles that I think are interesting, get a synopsis of each one, about 50 to 55 words, put them together with links, and put them up on my blog, geoharvey.wordpress.com. And the accumulated group of blog postings we go through and look at once a week. So
this is the best of the blog?
This is the best of the blog, 20 or so items, and we go over them in an hour-long show, which is recorded in Brattleboro Community Television Studio on Thursday mornings. And so we are starting on the previous Thursday's news, which is March 31st in this case, because today is the 7th of April. Not where you are, where we are. This thing never is broadcast on the same day it's made. Okay, so should we just go, Tom?
Am I supposed to start?
Let's do it. Yeah, there we go.
Right,
this is a chart. This is from Grist. You have a title for this, or do you not want to read titles today?
Yeah, there is a title here. This chart shows the United States' mind-blowing clean energy potential.
It sure does.
And it is mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing. The United States uses about 3.7 million gigawatt hours of electricity per each year.
That's that little circle in the lower right.
The little circle that has no color inside it in the lower right is the size. And the next time someone tries to make the argument that 100% renewable energy is out of reach for the United States, show them this image. There is an error in this image that I want to tell everybody about, and that is if you look at the bottom, you'll see I don't know, I'm kind of colorblind. It looks to me like it's yellow.
Little yellow dot.
A little yellow dot. It says rooftop solar, 0.8 million gigawatt hours. That actually is significantly smaller than it should be. The US DOE has changed its estimate of how much of our electricity could come from rooftop solar, almost doubling it. And so instead of being 0.8, it would probably be about 1.5.
That's not going to change much.
It's still very much less than we need. And yeah. And another thing that we should bear in mind here is the circle there of the U.S. electricity consumption, 3.7 gigawatt hours, assumes just that we're dealing with electric demand as it exists today. But in order to deal with climate change, we're going to have to go to electric for fuel, for heating. We're going to have to go to electric for cars. We're going to have
there's going to be a lot of changes.
There's going to be a lot of changes.
But some of them are going to offset each other.
Oh yeah.
There's going to be more efficiency.
There's going to be more efficiency.
There's going to be more people saving energy.
Yep, and electric vehicles use a lot less energy than gas-powered cars or diesel-powered trucks or whatever. But just look at that. The blue one is offshore wind, 17 million gigawatt hours. That's 5 times what we need. And that's just offshore wind.
Well, I added all of these up.
Yeah.
Okay, and the potential compared to the demand is 120 times.
Yeah, okay. So we can get 120 times as much electricity as we need by going to renewables if we developed it all, which we won't. And one of the things that's interesting about that also is that all we're looking at here is solar and wind. It doesn't include anything about geothermal. It doesn't include anything about biodigesters or biomass or anything of that sort, and it doesn't include hydro.
That's interesting. So
isn't
it's selective.
It's pretty selective. We could go to just solar and wind and get these things, and utility scale solar, I know there's a lot of people who would hate to see that go into farm fields, but it doesn't have to go into farm fields.
How about parking lots?
It can go over parking lots. It can go over sidewalks. It can go
over roadways even.
Over roadways, alongside roadways. It can go into old strip mines. It can go on lakes.
Yeah.
You know, we're starting to see the stuff being put up on lakes and reservoirs. It can go.
It makes sense with reservoirs because it cuts down evaporation.
Yes, and it also cools the panels, which makes them more efficient.
So you got a couple of pluses.
You got a couple of pluses there. And then you can put it on landfills. And there are precious few things that you can do with a landfill besides put solar on it, because you can't put buildings on it. You can't grow crops on it.
Yeah.
So anyway,
can't even raise goats.
Can't even raise goats? Yeah, I guess that's true. Well,
technically you can. Goats wouldn't mind.
The goats wouldn't mind, but you wouldn't want to do anything with them. I'm not even sure that you could use wool from sheep that were grazing on them, because these sites are toxic. Anyway,
there's a takeaway here.
Yeah,
it has to do with these balls here. But more than anything, we need to take a good long gander at that bowling ball of renewable generation potential. That's what you're looking at there.
Yep.
And convince ourselves that carving out a grape's worth is within our power. That little dot is a grape, and that big yellow thing's a bowling
ball. Yeah.
And it's a good way of visualizing it, because it's basically true.
Yep. Yes, that came from Grist.
Well, let's move along.
Let's move along. Our next item is from Huffington Post.
Clear skies from wind power.
Yeah, over 17 million Americans have asthma. Every year it is responsible for more than 10 million doctor visits and 1.8 million trips to the emergency room. Health professionals tell us one of the biggest triggers for asthma attacks is air pollution. And that, I have to tell you, the asthma is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
When we're talking, you know, I looked into the figures for air pollution again today, and 7 million people every year, according to the World Health Organization, are killed by air pollution. Now, that's not quite as many as are killed by water pollution, but 7 million are killed by air pollution. That's another human being every 4.5 seconds.
So we're talking about respiratory problems, we're talking about asthma, we're talking
about lung cancer, emphysema, but we're also talking about circulatory problems, and we're talking about air pollution affecting the quality of food, and you know, there's a lot of problems here. And the cost of and of course most of this comes from fossil fuels. About half of that is indoor, about half is outdoor. The overwhelming majority of the outdoor air pollution is fossil fuels. The indoor air pollution includes biomass, but it also includes fossil fuels, kerosene, coal, things like that are burned in unvented fires indoors.
In much of the world, that's how
much of the world.
That's how they prepare dinner.
Yeah, and and you know, people don't realize it. Chimneys were invented in about the year 1200. The ancient Romans and Greeks didn't have chimneys, so they didn't have fireplaces. They had open indoor fires.
Little pits in the middle of the living room.
That's right. Yeah. A pit in the middle of the living room is absolutely right. It's why the great halls of the Middle Ages were so tall. They were, you know, these rooms were like 3 stories tall, and everybody slept in them. Everybody in the whole castle would sleep in one room, because there were no rooms that had chimneys, so there were no rooms with fireplaces. And that's one of the biggest differences between late medieval architecture and Tudor architecture, was chimneys and fireplaces. Yeah. So anyway, that was from the Huffington Post, and
there's a quick takeaway here.
Yeah.
Because they're talking about, this article is about wind power alone, but it's applicable to any kind of renewables.
Right, absolutely.
But they say because of wind energy's reductions, Americans saved an estimated $7.3 billion in avoided health costs just last year.
Yep, and the cost of health problems resulting from fossil fuels to Americans is $250 billion a year, according to the World Health Organization. And that $250 billion a year is mostly paid in health insurance and taxes.
Okay.
So, if you're healthy and young, I'm sorry, you're paying it.
You're paying it.
You're paying it. And if you're not healthy and young, I'm sorry, it's making you sick while you're paying it. So, if you ever wonder why it is we're down on fossil fuels, that's part of the reason. Part of the reason. Okay.
That's the old story. Privatize the profits and socialize
the cost. The costs, yeah.
You pay for it as long as I got mine.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, what we're doing, by the way, folks, is we're buying free lunch for people who favor what they call a free market. Yeah, it's free, all right. It's free for them. Okay, we've got our next item from Creative Loafing Atlanta. Creative Loafing Atlanta.
I looked at that too. I laughed at that one. Well, it's about Vodal. We've talked about Vodal before.
Oh, we have. That's right.
Vodal nuclear reactors are delayed and over budget. Why am I not surprised? That's what we said the last time.
And you know what? They want to put another one up too. They just said so. It might seem like a bad April Fool's joke, but Plant Vodal is no laughing matter to Georgia Power customers. They've already paid more than $1.4 billion for reactors that don't work. Why? Because they won't be operational until 2020 or 2021. But the first was supposed to be operational on the 1st of April, April Fool's Day 2016. And guess what? It wasn't. Yes, indeed. Okay.
There's something here they're not even telling us.
Oh, yeah?
The cost has gone, of course, to the consumers.
Yes.
But only residential consumers. The businesses are exempt.
Okay. I didn't notice that one.
I caught it in actually a remark. It was a comment.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, our next item is from Friday, April 1st.
April Fool's Day.
That's right. And you can find these things, by the way, by going to my blog, geoharvey.wordpress.com.
Some of these are well worth following up on.
Yeah, they are.
If what we say on one of these things strikes a responsive chord, look it up.
Yeah.
These articles, many of them are much longer than we have time to talk about.
Oh, my gosh. This is from Energy Voice. What do you got for a title there, Tom?
Green power meets more than half of the Scottish electricity demand.
Okay.
Apparently, this is the first time it hit that. It's been
it did indeed.
It.
And it
finally hit it.
What's been going on in Scotland is crazy, and of course, it has its effect on the UK as a whole, which is now. You know what? I've got a minor problem here because of these. There we go. Okay. A total of 57.7% of electricity consumed in Scotland was renewably generated last year, up 7.9 percentage points, I should say, on 2014, according to the provisional UK government statistics. Scottish politicians and green groups hailed the figure but warned further progress could be hindered by UK policy. This is from Energy Voice.
We've talked about this before.
Oh, boy.
The Conservative government in London is operating at odds to, particularly the Scots.
Yeah, we will see another one in the next article, so should I just keep going?
Why not?
Okay, the next one is from Clean Technica, and you have to announce this, Tom.
UK renewables break new records as electricity bills drop.
Yeah.
So the bills are going down.
The bills are going down, renewables are going up, bills are going down. Why is that such a surprise? According to new figures published by the UK's Department of Energy and Climate Change, 2015 saw renewable energy generate a record 24.7% of the country's electricity, an increase of 5.6% on 2014 numbers. As a result, electricity bills are falling, and that's not a 5.6% of increase. That means that they have increased from 19.1 to 24.7 in 1 year.
They're doing okay.
They're doing okay.
I got a quick rundown on what the various forms of renewables have done.
Yeah.
In this, wind energy is up 26%.
Not a surprise.
Solar is up 86%.
Well,
okay. Bioenergy is up 28%.
Yes.
Total renewable energy generation is up 29%.
Yeah.
Okay. Coal output is down 27%.
Yes.
Coal imports are down 39%.
Yes.
and the average household electricity bill has dropped by 1.4%.
Isn't that amazing?
So somebody's doing something right.
Yeah, well, somebody was telling us it wasn't going to happen only a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. They were saying, oh, renewables can't do that, and furthermore, if you try to get them in, it's going to double the bills.
Yep.
That's what they were saying.
It doesn't seem to be happening.
Well, they were lying. Why is it such a surprise? Okay, our next item is from Cleveland.com.
Cleveland, yeah. I spent a week there one night.
Okay.
Ohio approves First Energy and AEP requests their utilities.
Yes.
Okay. Appeals to follow.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Ohio state regulators approved a version of First Energy's request to have customer-subsidized continued operations at the Davis-Besse nuclear power plant and the coal-fired W.H. Sammis plant. Customers will be forced to buy power from old plants even when cheaper power is available.
Have we talked about this one before?
This supports those people who are saying we need a free market.
Yeah.
Free for what? Free for them.
There is a takeaway here.
Yes.
This is from the AEP. That's American Electric Power. They're a large conglomerate.
Yep.
Okay. They own power companies all over America.
They don't own me.
This is a good takeaway.
Yeah.
The electric industry across the nation is in transition because of new technologies and cheap natural gas, and that the commission is trying to balance the needs of the utilities while protecting customers. Well, I don't think they really are
Which
trying to
customers?
protect anybody.
Big customers.
But it's going to be fun for a while. But forcing them to pay for these obsolete plants, it doesn't sound like it makes sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's Cleveland.
Yeah. Well.
It's interesting. Cleveland has, in the city of Cleveland, there's actually 2 electric utilities running.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
One of them is basically commercial. The other one is basically residential.
And in Brattleboro, there's going to be 2.
Is there?
Yeah, there's going to be GMP, which I will continue to get power from, and there's going to be me.
Oh, okay. Okay, you can talk about that if we got time later.
Yeah, if we have time.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a nanogrid.
A microgrid.
This is a small microgrid.
Small microgrid is a nanogrid. Okay.
Small microgrid. It's going to power one circuit in the building that I live in, and it'll be off grid. Okay.
Well, let's talk about Tesla for a while.
Let's do that. Yes, indeed.
Pre-orders for the Tesla Model 3 hit 198,000. This is like in a week.
This was like in a day. This
Almost,
was just the first day.
Yeah. And to put it in balance, to date, they've sold 100,000 vehicles. So just in this week for this new model,
and this is the new model,
doubled their sales.
Well, this is
these are pre-orders.
190. Yeah, they're pre-orders. Demand for the lower-priced Tesla Model 3, which is also all electric, surpassed even the company CEO's what the company CEO expected Friday, as 198,000 people plunked down $1,000 deposits. That's $198 million. Tesla had secured about 135 reservations on Thursday, the first day of ordering. The car won't go on sale for at least another year. This is from the Denver Post, but it was all over the internet. These people want this car. They really want the car.
Well, I think people have, like I, looked at these Teslas and said, gee, that's an awful nice car.
Oh, yeah.
But it's $100,000.
Yeah.
But now they're coming down to a $35,000 car, which will probably be $40,000 by the time it hits the street.
Well, it'll be.
But it's competitive with the Volt.
Yeah, it is, and it's got a nice it's got distance that it'll drive.
Got a longer operating range.
It's got a good operating range. It's over 200 miles, and it'll hook up to Tesla chargers, which charge really fast.
And they're starting to pop up.
And they're everywhere. And Jason Cooper drove his car a year ago down to Florida.
Yeah.
And back, and all he did was stop and refuel whenever he felt hungry.
But he had it all planned. I mean,
he had it planned.
He knows what he's doing.
The car's got a readout in it that tells you where the next upcoming place to fuel is.
And you got to admit that we're in this car's infancy.
Oh yes. No question.
And there's a long ways to go.
No question. Okay, our next item is from ENCA.
Okay, tech giants back U.S. government and climate change legal challenge.
How do you like that? Technical companies Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon, surprise Amazon, filed a joint amicus brief in the Federal Court of Appeals to support the Environmental Protection Agency as it defends its signature Clean Power Plan against challenge by industry groups and more than half of the U.S. states.
Well, this Clean Power Plan, as it says here, reflects reasonable and attainable assumptions about the increasing availability of renewable generation in a nation's power sector.
Yes.
Which is reality.
That's reality. Our next item on this thing is
okay, let's move over to China here.
Yeah, RT.
China proposes a $50 trillion global renewable energy network.
How do you like that? $50 trillion.
I can't conceive of much more than 1,000.
$1,000?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you something. If I had $1 trillion,
yeah,
I would bet you that I could spend it in a morning. Okay, the state grid, the company running China's power grid, is proposing a $50 trillion global energy network to tackle pollution and climate change. If it goes ahead, the network would use advanced renewable solar and wind technology and be operating by 2050. And I will tell you, it will also be using advanced transmission technology.
For sure.
For sure. And that transmission technology, from China, you could power any place on Earth. You could power the station at the South Pole if you wanted, as long as you just had that one line in place.
Yeah.
Getting the line in place is
that's something else again, but
part of the $50 trillion thing. But, you know, for $50 trillion, they could probably run a line to the United States. And,
well, $50 trillion would cover a lot.
$50 trillion would cover a lot. And they're putting in power at an enormous speed, and obviously what they're looking at here is having Europe as a target and Russia as a target.
I'm sure they are.
India as a target.
They're looking at, well, I've seen maps of it, the new Silk Road.
Yes, the new Silk Road.
Yeah.
Yep. You know,
and aside here is this network will be the world's largest infrastructure project.
I guess. 50 trillion sounds like it might be as big as all other infrastructure projects put together. We are up to Sunday, April 3rd, by the way, and we have a photograph here of a solar installation in Hawaii.
Let's try and pull that one up.
Yes, let's do that. There it is. Okay.
And it's in Hawaii.
Hawaii.
That's solar thermal. That's interesting. It's not photovoltaic if you look at the picture.
It's solar thermal, that's right, but it looks like solar PVs at first glance. Got a title on this one, Tom?
Hawaiian Electric, that's the company.
Yep.
Sets renewable energy plan.
Yeah. Hawaiian Electric Company submitted a revised power plan to the Hawaiian Public Utilities Commission to get to 100% renewable energy in 30 years. The company will use a broad mix of solar energy sources, onshore and offshore wind, hydropower, and geothermal. This is from a publication called Big Island Now.
Well, you got to figure that Hawaii has no native energy.
Yep.
They have no coal, no oil. They got to import everything.
They got Hawaiian people. They're energetic.
put them up on bicycle generators.
Put them up on stage and let them dance.
But here they go. I mean, they're importing everything, and they're saying, well, you know, let's do it ourselves.
Yes, it makes perfectly good sense. I mean, the fact, and every state in the United States has got more power than it needs, which is hardly a surprise when you consider the bowling ball and the grape on the first item.
Oh, absolutely. You know? Yeah, we don't even think about that.
Yeah.
But the potential from the sun is enormous.
Oh.
And it's free.
Yeah, and it's free. Should we go on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay. This is a picture from Ontario.
Oh, I've been there.
You have?
Yeah.
I spent a week there one night.
Ontario's challenge. This is their problem.
Yeah.
To have enough power for all the new electric cars.
And this is something that is going to change that bowling ball and that grape. Is the size of the grape is going to go up because we're going to be switching from gas-powered cars to electric-powered cars. Gas-powered or diesel-powered trucks to electric power.
And it's going to happen because it makes sense.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, there are people who are saying it's basically going to swamp the automotive industry within 7 years. Really. And
so everybody's going to want to buy a new car because it's electric.
Yeah.
And the automobile industry will be able to keep up.
It's when I think about the effect of this on the price of gasoline and the availability of gasoline, I wonder what that's going to do. We could wind up having high-priced gasoline because demand is low. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make any sense. Right now, we've got low-priced gasoline because availability is low, and they're trying to pump it out so they can sell it before people don't want it anymore. It's crazy. Okay.
There's an interesting thing here.
I haven't read my blurb here yet, Tom.
Oh, you're getting ahead of me.
I am.
I'm getting ahead of you, I mean.
That's right. London Free Press. Ontario's challenge is to have enough power for all its new electric cars. When Ontario's power planners look down the road, they see electric vehicles coming at them, and boy, are they coming. They just might be coming a little faster now than the forecasters had imagined. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, here's something that nobody's even thinking of.
Yeah.
But this is a fact. According to this report,
yep,
as few as 4 electric vehicles on a single transformer, which is basically like one block,
yeah,
could cause an overload.
Well, that tells you something, doesn't it?
So if all of a sudden everybody wants an electric car, they're going to have to completely revise the electric power distribution system.
And you know what? They can make that really easy by making sure everybody has their own solar power.
That would be very helpful. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about just that. Why doesn't somebody come up with a package, an electric vehicle, and then a small carport with solar panels on the roof?
I've actually seen pictures of that.
All as part of the package.
As a matter of fact, you can get a 4-wheel pedal-powered vehicle with 2 sets of pedals, so you can have 2 people pedaling it, with a solar panel on the roof and electric backup power.
That sounds like fun.
Doesn't it? Should we go on?
Might as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Our next item comes from The Age. They don't say which age. I think it must be the coal age.
Doctors call for brown coal power shutdown plan in the Latrobe Valley. And the Latrobe Valley is in Australia.
It is, and it is a mess. The Latrobe Valley is a difficult place to live in because it's difficult to stay alive.
This is where they got that brown coal that every once in a while a fire starts and you can't put it out.
Yeah, and the fire is going and they can't put it out, and it means that they've got lots of carbon monoxide around, things that people, if they breathe them, they might just die. More than 300 doctors and other medical professionals have signed an open letter demanding the government of the Australian state of Victoria develop a plan to retire the Latrobe Valley's brown coal power plants because of the health damage they cause the local community. It's a mess.
And who thought about that stuff?
Well, we've got one town in Pennsylvania that had to be evacuated many years ago, and nobody has moved back.
Is that so?
Yes. And the reason is because coal underground caught fire from, by the way, the local landfill.
No kidding.
Yeah.
What's the name of the town?
I don't remember, but it is there, and it's like, it's full of empty houses that you could live in if you don't mind. Yeah. You could live in the houses if you don't mind dying.
Interesting thing here. This caught my eye. The Latrobe Valley. And
yes.
There's a town right next to Pittsburgh called Latrobe, Pennsylvania.
Really?
And I was wondering if there's any kind of connection, because that's in coal mining country too.
Interesting.
And it turns out that they're all named after members of the same family.
Ah. Well.
Father, son, and uncle.
Really?
Yeah.
Only 2 of them got towns, though.
Well, one of them got a valley, the other got a town.
Ah,
yeah.
okay. All right.
Yeah, they were civil engineers and architects back at the turn of the century.
Yeah.
And Latrobe father in the U.S. was the guy that rebuilt Washington, D.C. after the British destroyed it in the War of 1812.
Aha, there you go. Okay. Our next one is from Solar Power Portal. And you can tell everybody what that's about.
Too.
Do I? I don't think so. I don't think.
Oh, that's still
Latrobe. Yep, that's the Latrobe.
I'll get you up here.
Yep.
G2 Energy, which is a company, completes over 356 megawatts of solar projects ahead of RO closure. Now, RO is the renewables obligation. It's,
right.
It's the subsidy.
Right. In the UK.
And that was about to expire April 1st.
Yeah, what a joke. In the UK, G2 Energy completed work on 47 large-scale solar farms totaling 356.4 megawatts in the 6 months leading to closure of the renewables obligation on the 31st of March. The year is the fifth running that it has connected 100% of its contracted renewable energy projects on time. Now, this explains why the UK installed so much last year.
Yeah.
It was because they were cutting support from renewable power.
Absolutely.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens this year. And you know, the total for the UK, which was up partly because the total for Scotland was up.
Yeah. Scotland is way ahead of the game there.
Yep. Okay.
This G2 Energy is a contractor
Yep.
that specializes in this kind of work.
Okay.
And they have completed works on connections for 136 solar farms. So they've been busy.
Yeah. They have been busy. There's 47 large-scale solar farms totaling 356.4 megawatts. That's a lot. That is a lot.
Well, since 2011,
yeah,
they have completed works on connections for 136 solar farms, which I mentioned.
Yeah.
Total capacity of 1.2 gigawatts.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
That's a lot. Yeah, it is. And one of the things that's interesting about this is it can go in so fast. It's really fast to see this stuff going in. Solar farm can go in weeks.
You can pick up the panels off the shelf somewhere.
Yeah, and put it in.
Then it's just a matter of hooking them up. It's probably it's probably easier than wiring a house.
I would guess, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm going to find out because I'm going to have my nanogrid.
Nano. We've got a nice picture coming up here.
Yeah, it is. This is from PV Tech, and it's Tuesday, April 5th. And this has to do with HECO.
Hawaiian's main utility.
Yep.
Hawaiian Electric Company, HECO.
That's right.
Smart grid, demand response, and storage will help Hawaii reach 100% renewables by 2045. Didn't we just finish talking about something like this?
We were talking about Hawaii just a moment ago. Hawaii's main utility, HECO, says smart grid demand response and storage technologies will help Hawaii reach 100% renewables by 2045. The plan submitted to the regulator shows how the state can continue to steer a course to meet its ambitious 100% renewable energy-powered target. Now, the point here is this tells a little more detail about how it's going to be done. And this business of demand response is really important, and it's, I think, probably the single most overlooked thing in energy.
You know, demand response is like balancing the demand with the sources.
That's right.
So you got somebody generating over here, and you got somebody using it over there. You connect it.
Right, and I don't know what do you suppose an electric water heater takes as power? Maybe 2 kilowatts.
When it's running, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
As much as that, it's a big one, 2 kilowatts.
Okay, well, let's just say that it's 1 kilowatt. There are 50 million of them in the United States. Now, a lot of those, of course, are gas.
Yeah, but most of them are electric.
But even so, when you have all of those things on, that's a lot of power. 50 million times a kilowatt, that's 50 gigawatts, which is the equivalent of about 50 nuclear power plants, if all of those things came on at once. So
it would dim your lights a little bit.
Dim your lights. Well, what you can do if you want to, and of course you want to do this under computer control so it makes sense how it's executed, you can shut those things off during the day, and as the response changes and the daytime highs turn into the nighttime lows, you can have those things come on, which means that in effect, they are energy storage units.
You know, I was just thinking about exactly that.
Yeah. And the effect of that...
They're basically batteries.
They're basically batteries, because you're going to charge them sometime the next 24 hours anyway. And what that means is that if you're running on solar, you can use them for storing your solar power. And interestingly enough, a good electric water heater, why don't you put that picture up so people can see what it is? a good electric water heater, if it's is going to have a certain measure of inefficiency, where does
They're pretty effective, though.
Yeah, they are, but where does the heat disappear to?
Into your atmosphere, into your room.
It goes into your house.
Yeah. Yeah.
It heats your house.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the plans here.
Yeah.
They're using hot water heaters to heat the house.
Yeah.
Off peak.
Off peak, right. So that was from PV Tech, and by the way, gang, that's the picture of the PVs in Hawaii. Did we have that up before? Did I ask you?
Did.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I shouldn't have asked for it.
We just had it.
I was being mean. Okay. Our next item comes from RT. Continued operation of, and Tom, you should continue what I'm saying because you're the guy who's supposed to.
This is our guy.
Yeah.
Catastrophe waiting to happen.
Bernie
Sanders wants to close nuclear plant 25 miles from New York City.
Yes.
A lot of people want to close
Yes.
that nuclear plant.
Continued operation of the decaying 40-year-old Indian Point nuclear plant up the Hudson River from New York, quote, makes no sense, end quote, according to Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders. The plant is within 50 miles of the homes of 20 million people. And by the way, it's within 50 miles of every block of New York City except about 3 at the southern end of Staten Island.
Okay.
It is
It's
really
also 20 miles away from where Hillary lives.
Well, wow, but she doesn't care. She got so much money, she could go someplace else.
I'll read what Sanders says because it sounds like Sanders.
Yeah.
I am very concerned that the Indian Power nuclear power reactor is more than ever before a catastrophe waiting to happen.
Yeah.
In my view, we cannot sit idly by and hope that the unthinkable will never happen. We must take action to shut this plant down now in a safe and responsible way. Makes no sense to me to continue to operate a decaying nuclear reactor within 25 miles of New York City where nearly 10 million people live.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? Just if you want to go through an exercise in post-apocalyptic movies or something like that, just think about what it would be like to evacuate New York City and the other areas within 50 miles.
Not possible.
While people are panicked because the Indian Point plant is going down. I would bet you wouldn't be able to get the entire population out of Manhattan for a week.
That's probably about right.
Because if they're gonna evacuate to the west, they have to go across the bridges and the tunnels. And where are they going to go? They're going to go into places where people are trying to evacuate.
Yeah.
So you don't do it by car because you're never going to make it. You're never going to make it by car.
The only way out is through the Bronx and into Westchester County by the back roads.
Yeah. Well, my advice, if you want to do it, is hijack a boat. Okay. Should we go on?
Well, there's a quick one
I've
here.
just advised people to do something illegal. I should take it back.
Last month, I can't believe this one.
Okay.
Last month it was revealed that bird feces piling up on power lines at Indian Point was responsible for a plant shutdown.
Well, that's what happened.
And in May 2015, and we talked about this one, a transformer exploded at Indian Point, causing the plant to shut down amid fire and billowing smoke.
Yeah.
We had pictures of that.
Pictures of beautiful billowing smoke. I didn't get pictures of the bird feces, but we got the billowing smoke. Should we go on?
Yeah, let's go to the next
PV
one.
Magazine.
Oh, we're back. We're back to
What did
Hinckley.
PV Magazine say? Hinckley.
Supporting renewables over controversial Hinckley nuclear plant could save billions, finds report.
Isn't this amazing? A report by the UK's Intergenerational Foundation forecast that the country could save £39.9 billion, which is $56.7 billion over the next 35 years, if government steered the estimated £24 billion, $34 billion, required to build and run the Hinckley nuclear plant toward solar PV investment instead. In other words, you're going to save more money than the plant costs.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot going on there we don't know anything about. But
absolutely.
It's
part of it is the plant is going to cost £26 billion.
It's going to cost more than that.
But in order to get the financing, they had to guarantee an electric price that was approximately 13.5 cents per kilowatt hour, wholesale.
So that's double normal.
Double normal, that's right.
For
and
35 years.
35 years. So that's why it'll save so much money, because they've just got huge amounts of money going into this. And in order to do that, the government of the UK is going to have to give up on a very basic idea that it has, which is support big business at the expense of ordinary consumers and taxpayers.
Are you some kind of socialist?
Socialist. My goodness gracious, Tom.
The takeaway here is this particular plant would be the most expensive building on Earth.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, there was a time, I think, when possibly that title went to the Palace at Versailles.
Oh, yeah?
And somebody did something about that, as I recall.
Robespierre?
Yeah. Yes, you got it. Okay, go on.
Yeah, let's move on.
Our next item comes from Renews. I put this in just for you, Tom.
Oh, this one's neat.
Yeah, it's neat.
This one's neat.
Look at that.
Wagenborg delivers at Horns Rev.
Horns Rev. What language were you reading that from?
Well, I don't know. It's either Dutch or Danish.
Yeah, it's Dutch, and I would guess that it's Wagenborg. Although they would probably say something like Wagenborg. No, I'm sorry, Dutch. Wagenborg. Dutch shipping company Wagenborg has set sail with the topside of the Horns Rev 3 offshore wind substation ahead of the an installation off Denmark. A pair of vessels left Schiedam on the HSM built structure, with the HSM built structure, which will export power from Vattenfall's 400, and I'm not sure that I'm getting any of these pronunciations right, Vattenfall's 400 megawatt offshore wind farm. This is in Renews. And you know, it's
what
kind
we're
of...
looking at there is, this is a substation. It's a switch yard.
Yep, and this is the part of it that's going to go on top of the pilings.
Yeah.
So this is probably going to be...
connect a whole bunch of wind turbines.
Yep.
To a cable.
Yep.
Going to the shore.
Yep. And I would guess there's going to be people living on this thing. There's certainly
there will be a crew there for sure. Yeah,
helicopter pad, and they've got all kinds of stuff. You probably have.
If you look at all those red dots,
yeah,
probably every one of those is a modular unit.
Okay.
Like the size of a tractor trailer.
Okay.
And they're hooking them all up together, which they have to.
Right.
You could see something very much like this in a different scale if you looked over next to Yankee.
Yes.
It's all high towers and,
Yep.
and insulators and
Yep.
power. This is the same thing,
Yep.
except it's put in boxes to protect it from the sea.
That's right. That's what it is. And it's got all kinds of walkways, and that looks like a kind of a grand esplanade on the back there. And is that a dance floor that's in the upper left corner?
I think what we're looking at is a barge.
That's a barge, and it's being towed by that.
They're bringing it out there, and then it's going to probably be anchored to the ground. It's probably not going to be floating. It's going to be anchored.
My guess is that's what it would be.
Yeah.
Although you could have it floating. Okay. Now we're up to Wednesday, April 6th.
Hey, that's yesterday.
That's yesterday. Utility regulators. There you go. You start. Press Enterprise gave us this.
Natural gas storage facility depleted by leak could leave region short of energy. Now, we've been talking about this leak.
Oh, this leak is horrible.
But this is a second-order consequence.
Yes, it is.
Because the gas isn't there anymore.
I don't think people have yet been allowed back to their homes. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're moving back slowly.
They are? Okay.
Yep, they are moving back.
Utility regulators announced that Southern California could face 14 days of rolling blackouts if Southern California gas company's Aliso Canyon energy facility above Porter Ranch remains depleted. The warning is the latest reverberation in the largest natural gas leak in U.S. history. And I would say possibly the most foolish natural gas leak in the history of the world.
Well, there was something screwy in this article.
Yes?
The article said, and I quote, it spewed nearly 100 million tons of methane until it was plugged. So I tried to figure out what's 100 million tons look like.
Yeah.
You know? And it came out to be 2 million cylinders.
Yeah.
You know, like the cylinders you get to pipe your house. And then I said, this doesn't make sense. And so it turns out it's not 100 million tons, it's 100,000 tons.
No.
Yeah.
I don't believe it.
100,000
tons per day.
97,100 long tons.
Okay, we're going to have to look into that. I know I had.
Because I looked at it, I said, this is weird.
I think that's the number of tons they were losing every day. And
No,
they
that's
lost
the
them
total.
for 100 days.
97,100 tons, 96,600 long tons, 107,000 short tons of methane. Just the methane.
Yeah, well, and this was a serious problem.
No matter what,
Yeah.
it's still a lot of gas.
Yes, it is. That is true. There's no question about it. Okay, should we
So
go
there's going to
on?
be gas shortages this summer.
In that part
In
of
that part of the world, yeah.
In that part of the world, and we are up to
We're coming home.
coming home. Here is our next
Vermont
item.
to consider the purchase of hydroelectric dams.
Oh, we're back to the real home here. Vermont Governor Peter Shumlin and leaders of the House and Senate agreed Tuesday that the state would consider purchasing the hydroelectric dams on the Connecticut and Deerfield rivers. Their owner, TransCanada, boo, has announced that it wants to sell 13 dams. I'm sorry, I shouldn't do
Well,
that.
those guys in the picture, in case you're interested, left
Yep.
to right. Shap Smith, House Speaker on the left.
Yep.
Senate Pro Tem John Campbell next to
Peter
the governor.
Shumlin, yeah.
And Secretary of Administration Justin Johnson. Never even heard of that guy.
I didn't know of him either. Oh, by the way, I should mention this article comes from 7 Days.
It does.
It
Yep.
does indeed. This is something which I think is it's almost stunning. It's something that caught everybody very much by surprise.
Oh, absolutely.
It was not. People were just blown away by this.
Nearby us, there's one of these dams in Vernon, right,
Yep.
right south of Yankee.
Yep.
And the other one's in Bellows Falls.
Yep.
Right downtown.
Yeah, and the Vernon Dam. I mean, when you consider that it's practically next door to the Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant.
Oh, it's right adjacent
And
to it.
this is going to interest the people in Vernon who have to worry about the tax revenues from.
Absolutely. I'm
Vermont Yankee
sure
changing.
they're looking at this.
Yes.
I don't
So-
think they want all the dams, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go after one of them.
Well, I think there's going to be a couple because there was interest by local communities in some of the other dams. The one at Bellows Falls, for example, was of interest.
Yeah, it had been of interest by Bellows Falls in the past. Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm sure all up and down the river there's local communities who would like to have
And there have been a lot of people who have been upset that these dams were not purchased locally.
Yeah.
And
It
if
would've
you
made
think about
sense.
it, if you think about it, if the state owns it, if a corporation in the state, public owned by people who live in the state, if the communities own it, whatever owns this, and it's something that exists in Vermont, it means that the power that is sold from those is sold. Collects money which is in the Vermont economy, and it stays in the Vermont economy, where if it belongs to TransCanada, it's shipped to Canada.
the money goes to Canada.
So why are we doing that? I don't know.
Well, this has been interesting before because what happened about 10 years ago was the owners, U.S. Gen, were
Yep.
bankrupt.
Yep,
Okay, so they were selling these things at rock bottom prices.
right.
And
TransCanada will not do that.
no, they know what they're worth.
They want to make a profit.
But they want to use that money somewhere else, probably to build a pipeline.
Yeah,
but we don't
to
know
pollute
that.
the environment. Yeah, that's probably what it's for.
But in any case, Vincent Lucy,
Yeah,
who's a Republican,
yeah.
was all for it. He was
Yes.
pushing for it.
Yes.
Douglas was against it. So they created an entity called the Senate Institutions Committee
Yes.
to figure out should they buy it or not. And they did wind up submitting a bid. I thought they didn't at all, but they did. But TransCanada beat them by quite a bit.
Yeah.
So TransCanada wound up owning them. So this is a second chance. They're not going to be able to buy it at the bargain basement price they would have had 10 years ago.
Yep.
But they have a chance, so let's see what they come up with.
Well, there are people out there, and I have a friend who's one of them, who says, the government buy these things? That's socialism.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, if a group of people decide to do something and vote on it and it's done, that's democracy.
Yeah.
All right? Are you going to tell me that socialism, the idea that it's socialism is going to trump the idea that we're in a democracy?
Well,
I'm sorry.
We've got public power in Vermont.
I know we do.
Burlington Electric.
We've got
Vermont Electric Co-op.
And I wouldn't mind if GMP were public.
Well, they're interested this time.
Yes.
At that
GMP
particular
might
time,
be.
it was a smaller GMP.
Yes.
Okay,
That's
they
right.
were not interested, but now they're looking at this.
I would be amazed if Mary Porter, the CEO of GMP, wasn't really interested in this.
I wouldn't be surprised to see some sort of public-private partnership.
I wouldn't be at all
this.
surprised. This article, by the way, came from 7 Days.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah,
Did
I?
They do a
Okay.
pretty good job.
Yeah. Our next item is from Clean Technica. And what they have said is New York State's, I'm sorry, Tom, you go ahead.
14 Westchester communities
Whoa.
opt for 100% green energy.
Wow.
New York's got a program called Sustainable Communities.
Right?
And Sustainable Westchester is one of them.
Yes. New York State's first community choice aggregation under Governor Cuomo's watch is now expected to start supplying customers with electricity on the 1st of May 2015. Of the 20 participating Sustainable Westchester communities, 14 opted for 100% green energy as a default. This is in Clean Technica, and it reminds me a bit of a conversation that I had with Carol Collins, who's the energy coordinator in Greenfield.
Yeah. I've spoken to her.
And they went to a community choice aggregation, and the mayor of Greenfield, whose name I have forgotten, went to her and said, "Can we do this?" And she said, "I'll do it, provided that we go 100% green, if possible." And so he said, "Okay." And so they're getting power from wind turbines in Massachusetts, wind turbines in Maine, a number of other places. All of the power they went for is renewable. And I asked her, "Are you 100% renewable?" And she said, "I can't really say that we are." And I'm not 100% sure on the reasons why, but I think it's because people can opt out. And they may have had one or two people.
Opt out, yep.
But you have to pay extra for that. And it's not because of any bureaucratic
That's
thing.
the way the numbers fall.
It's because the way they negotiated for the power, it turns out that green power is cheaper. So these organizations, which are municipalities in New York State, may have simply contracted for cheaper power that happens also to be green.
I think that's exactly what has happened.
Yeah.
They haven't created their own utility.
Yeah.
The utilities that are there are still going to be handling the lines.
Right.
But they're going to be paying into Sustainable Westchester instead of Con Edison.
Right. And
Con Edison will get paid for maintaining the lines.
And there's money to be made there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think everybody's happy with this one.
Well, that's good. Should we go on?
We got one more left, I think.
We got
don't
one more left.
Yeah.
It's from the Recorder.
That's the Greenfield Recorder.
It's the Greenfield Recorder. That's
Co-op
correct.
power, community solar array, okay to plug into grid. This has been a long time coming.
It has been indeed. The Co-op Power Renewable Energy Cooperative, awaiting startup of its Northeast biodiesel plant in the Greenfield Industrial Park, has received a long-delayed interconnection agreement for another project at the same site, a 595 kilowatt community shared solar project. This is solar PV, and it's at a biodiesel plant. And one of the things that's coming up is an article on installing solar on the hardware, and we needed photographs for that. And Nancy Ray Mallory, who is the editor-in-chief, wanted a particular photograph, which we got, and it shows a balloon over a solar field, which is not very far from where she lives. Mm-hmm. She lives in Bradford, and I forget the town that the solar farm is in, but she looked at this thing, and the solar farm is huge. By Vermont standards, it's probably 2 megawatts. And
it's big.
Yeah, it's big, and it's a beautiful picture, and it's a beautiful solar farm. It's really quite a joy to look at. But she said, we were talking about how people object to the appearance of solar farms, and she said, it's funny. She said, I've never seen that array, and it's right near where I live, and I drive by it every day. And the
Never even noticed it.
Never even noticed it. And
She could see it, but never noticed it?
She'd never seen it because it's in the woods.
Okay.
You see. But people don't realize that these solar arrays can go up on landfills. They can go up on strip mines. They can go up on old industrial parks. They can go up on all kinds of places where...
It doesn't have to be prime agricultural land.
No, it does not. And in fact, they can go into places that are kind of ugly to begin with. And not only that, but there are places in the world where solar PVs go up and coexist with agriculture.
Well, cows and goats don't mind.
Goats especially, they climb on them. But the sheep are the ones that... Okay, I'm going to tell everybody about my nanogrid.
Sounds like a plan.
Basically what happened was when I found out that about the Aqueon batteries, I really like the Aqueon batteries. I've got 2 Aqueon batteries in my kitchen right now. And these things are about 13 inches by 13 inches on the floor and about 40 inches tall, and they weigh about 250 pounds.
So they're like columns, huh?
They're columns, yeah. And they're not very pretty. They're kind of black cubes, rather solid rectangles. But they have a chemistry that just fascinates me. The electrolyte is sodium sulfate, which is a salt. It doesn't smell. People confuse it with sodium sulfite.
Not caustic.
Not caustic. It's just it's a fairly benign salt. And the electrodes, one of them is carbon and the other is magnesium oxide, also known as milk of magnesia. And so we've got this thing that if
it's not magnesium metal, it
is magnesium oxide, milk of magnesia, literally. It's not exactly the same, but it's pretty close.
It's like a solid bar of it.
That's right. And they can be drained 100% without damage.
Now that's very interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
You can't do that to a car battery.
Yep, and they are 2.6 kilowatt hour batteries. So between
6 kilo, okay.
So between the two, I'll have about 5 kilowatt hours. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them on their own dedicated circuit.
Okay.
And the circuit will be charged by solar panels, and they will discharge into 3 outlets, which I will have mounted next to outlets that are already on the walls.
So if there's a problem, all you do is
switch from one. That's right.
Plug it in there.
Very, very simple. And the circuits will go to a refrigerator, the sump pump, and a heater.
The essential stuff.
Essential stuff. And they will simply run those. And if I find the batteries, if the batteries get low, I will unplug something for a while. And if the batteries, if the solar produces more than I need fairly consistently, then I'll start putting other things onto those circuits until they're pretty much loaded. And when the grid goes down, which it will because there's a storm right out there in the Atlantic Ocean right now, and if you look at it, it has engraved in the clouds, Irene. It's coming back.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Sooner or later, we're going to have storms. I have had 4 outages in the course of my life in which I was without power for over a week. Hurricane Bob, which was the most destructive at the time in New England history. The perfect storm, I was around for that. And then 2 in New Hampshire when I was living in Winchester, which one was a blizzard and the other was an ice storm. And it's not nice to live without power for a week. You know, it's unpleasant, particularly
very accustomed to it.
Yeah, particularly in cold weather. And I was lucky because I happened to have a generator. But living with a generator that's running 8 or 10 hours a day is not fun because it makes noise.
Yep.
And I'm talking about real, honest to goodness noise. It's like having a lawnmower under your window constantly. And so, you know, this is going to be the reason why it's not on grid is because you need something that will disconnect it from the grid instantly if the grid goes down. Because
so
otherwise
you don't want to electrocute poor power guy doesn't know it's
live. Yes, that's right. So anyway, there it is, and I'll report on how I do. And we are running out of time.
I think we are.
So we will say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
I would hope gentle rains can fall.